Here's an expanded version of Part 1, First Contact in a simple, engaging, and human-centric narrative. The moon's surface stretched like a silver canvas, broken only by jagged rock formations and the faint shimmer of distant research equipment. Hyun Park adjusted her protective suit, her breath fogging the inside of her helmet. Another routine planetary survey, she thought, another day of collecting rock samples and atmospheric readings. But this day would be different. The moment happened so quickly that Hyun almost missed it. A slight movement caught her eye. Something, struggling between two massive boulder formations. Most researchers would have dismissed it as a trick of light or a random geological shift. But Hyun had always been different. Her colleagues often joked that she had more curiosity than caution. She approached carefully, her heart racing. The creature was small, barely the size of a young dog, but clearly not from any known Earth species. Its body was covered in scales. That seemed to change color with each labored breath, shifting from a deep midnight blue to a pale silvery gray. Breathing was difficult for the creature. One of its limbs appeared badly wounded, with a deep gash that suggested a recent violent encounter. Hyun knew the risks. This was an unknown alien life form, potentially dangerous. Her training screamed at her to maintain distance, to call the research team, to follow strict xenobiological protocols. But something in the creature's eyes stopped her. They weren't just eyes. They were windows to an intelligence that seemed to plead for help. "Hey there," she whispered, her voice soft and calm. The creature didn't move away. Instead, it made a low, almost musical chirping sound that seemed more like communication than a simple animal noise. The surrounding environment was harsh. Temperatures fluctuated wildly, and radiation levels were unpredictable. Whatever this creature was, it wouldn't survive long without intervention. Hyun made a split-second decision that would change everything. Carefully, she reached into her emergency medical kit. Her hands, protected by specialized gloves, moved slowly. The creature watched her, not with fear, but with a kind of calculated observation. It was sizing her up, trying to understand her intentions. "I'm not going to hurt you," Hyun said, though she knew the creature couldn't understand her language. But communication isn't just about words. It's about intention, about energy. The extraction was delicate. She needed to stabilize the creature, protect it from the harsh lunar environment, and get it back to the research station without causing additional trauma. Each movement was calculated, gentle, professional. As she lifted the creature, its scales reacted, creating a beautiful, almost luminescent pattern that seemed to pulse with its heartbeat. Hyun had seen thousands of biological specimens in her career, but nothing like this. This wasn't just another research subject. This was something extraordinary. The journey back to the research station was tense. The creature remained surprisingly calm, occasionally making those soft, musical chirping sounds. Hyun's mind raced with questions. Where did it come from? What species was it? How had it survived in such a hostile environment? Little did she know, this chance encounter would be the beginning of an extraordinary journey that would challenge everything she understood about life, intelligence, and connection. When she finally entered the research station's medical bay, her colleagues were stunned. Dr. Kim, the senior researcher, approached with a mixture of excitement and concern. "What? Have you found Hyun?" he asked, his eyes wide with professional curiosity. Hyun looked down at the creature, which was now resting quietly. "Something incredible," she responded. "Something that's going to change everything we know." The creature, which she would soon name Bori, opened its eyes. And in that moment, a connection began that would transcend everything anyone had ever understood about life beyond Earth. Would you like me to continue with this approach for the subsequent parts? Here's an expanded version of Part 2. Unexpected. Connection in a simple, engaging, and human-centric narrative. The research station hummed with a quiet intensity. Specialized medical equipment surrounded a small isolation chamber where Bori rested. Hyun spent countless hours observing, documenting, but mostly just watching. Recovery wasn't just about physical healing, it was about understanding. Bori's wounds were healing faster than any medical professional had ever seen. What should have taken weeks was happening in days. But more fascinating was the creature's behavior. It wasn't just surviving, it was learning. On the third day, Hyun noticed something extraordinary. Bori had started mimicking the movement of her hands. When she would gesture towards medical tools, the creature would track her movement with an intelligence that defied everything in their current scientific understanding. "You're something special," Hyun would whisper, careful not to startle her unusual patient. The research team grew increasingly concerned. Dr. Kim pulled Hyun aside during one of her observation shifts. "We need to be careful," he warned, his voice low and serious. "This isn't a typical specimen. Its biological markers are unlike anything we've ever seen." Hyun understood the risks, but she also saw something more. Each time Bori's scales shifted color, from deep blue to soft silver, from metallic green to warm amber, it seemed like a language, a communication beyond words. Feeding became an intricate dance of trust. The creature's dietary needs were complex. Standard nutrition protocols didn't work. Hyun spent hours experimenting, creating specialized nutrient mixes that would support Bori's unique biological structure. One particular evening changed everything. Hyun was working late, her coffee gone, cold research notes scattered around her workstation. Bori had been unusually quiet. Suddenly a soft chirping sound broke the silence, but this wasn't like the previous sounds. This was different, intentional. The chirp seemed to form a pattern, almost like a response. Hyun froze. She repeated her earlier hand gesture, a simple motion of reaching for a medical tablet, and then, incredibly, Bori mimicked the exact movement, not just watching, but deliberately copying. "You understand," Hyun whispered, her voice trembling with excitement. Communication wasn't just about language. It was about connection. The next few weeks became a journey of discovery. Bori showed remarkable adaptive skills. It learned to recognize specific sounds, to respond to basic visual cues. What started as medical observation transformed into something deeper, a relationship that defied scientific categorization. Other researchers grew skeptical. "It's just survival instinct," they would argue. "Advanced mimicry, nothing more." But Hyun knew differently. She began developing a unique communication system, simple gestures, consistent sounds, visual cues. Each interaction revealed more about Bori's incredible cognitive abilities. The isolation chamber became less of a medical unit and more of a learning environment. Bori wasn't just recovering, it was evolving, understanding, connecting. Late one night, something remarkable happened. Bori approached the chamber's transparent wall and placed its hand, a complex appendage unlike anything in Earth's biological records, directly opposite Hyun's hand on the other side. No words were spoken. No complicated scientific explanations were needed, just a moment of pure, unexpected connection. The research station would never be the same, and neither would Hyun's understanding of life, intelligence, and the profound possibilities that existed beyond human comprehension. Something extraordinary was happening, and they were just at the beginning of understanding it. Would you like me to continue with this approach for the subsequent parts? Here's an expanded version of Part 3, Growing. Dressed in a simple, engaging, and human-centric narrative, the research station became a pressure cooker of tension. Weeks had passed since Bori's arrival, and the initial excitement was giving way to professional skepticism. Hushed conversations filled the corridors, filled with doubt and scientific reservation. Hyun knew she was walking a dangerous line. Every morning, she would arrive at the observation room, her notebook filled with meticulous notes, her mind buzzing with possibilities. Bori was no longer just a specimen. It had become something more, a partner in discovery, a friend. The first significant breakthrough came during a routine communication exercise. Hyun had been developing a series of hand signals and sound patterns, hoping to establish some form of meaningful interaction. Most researchers believed it was futile. But Hyun had always been different. That morning was different. Bori not only responded to her signals, but began to anticipate them. When Hyun would reach for a specific tool, the creature would already be preparing a response. It wasn't just mimicry anymore, it was understanding. Dr. Park, the station's senior researcher, watched the interactions with growing concern. "We're crossing a line," he would mutter, his weathered hands clutching his coffee mug. "This isn't scientific observation anymore. This is something else entirely." Hyun understood the risks. Professional reputation was everything in scientific circles. One wrong move could destroy years of carefully built credibility. But something inside her knew this was bigger than professional recognition. The station's protocols were strict. Alien life forms were to be studied, documented, and maintained at a strict professional distance. Emotional attachment was forbidden. But Bori seemed to challenge every existing protocol. Its communication skills developed rapidly. What started as simple color changes and chirping sounds evolved into a complex language of movement, color, and sound. Hyun began to recognize patterns, subtle shifts that spoke volumes about Bori's emotional state. One particular evening changed everything. The research station experienced a critical system failure. Emergency lights flickered and alarms blared through the sterile corridors. Most creatures would have panicked, but Bori did something unexpected. Instead of retreating, it began to assist. Using its unique appendages, Bori started helping Hyun stabilize critical equipment. Its movements were precise, calculated. It wasn't just reacting, it was problem-solving. The other researchers watched in stunned silence. "This is impossible," Dr. Kim muttered, his scientific worldview crumbling around him. Trust wasn't something that could be manufactured in a laboratory. It was earned, slowly, carefully, with every shared moment, every challenging interaction. Hyun began documenting everything, not just the scientific observations, but the moments of connection. The subtle ways Bori would respond to her mood, the way it seemed to understand complex human emotions. The research team became divided. Some saw Bori as a breakthrough in xenobiological research. Others saw it as a potential security risk. Late night meetings became heated arguments about the creature's true nature. But Hyun saw something deeper. She saw a being capable of compassion, of understanding, of connection that transcended species, language, and scientific boundaries. As weeks turned into months, the relationship between Hyun and Bori evolved. It wasn't just about scientific observation anymore. It was about something profound, something that challenged everything humans understood about intelligence and communication. The research station had become more than a scientific facility. It had become a bridge between two completely different worlds, and at the center of it all was Hyun, a scientist who had dared to look beyond the established boundaries of scientific research. Would you like me to continue with this approach? For the subsequent parts, here's an expanded version of Part 4, challenging the unknown in a simple, engaging, and human-centric narrative. The morning arrived with an unexpected tension. Black government vehicles lined up outside the research station, their sleek surfaces reflecting the harsh morning light. Something was wrong. Something was about to change everything. Hyun knew the moment she saw them. These weren't routine inspectors. These were people who wanted Bori, not for research, but for something far more complicated. Colonel Jang led the team. His steel-gray eyes scanned the research facility with a predatory precision that made Hyun's skin crawl. Military personnel moved with calculated efficiency, their movements synchronized like a well-oiled machine. "We're here to transfer the specimen," Colonel Jang announced, his voice cold and clinical. Hyun felt her heart racing. Transfer meant dissection, meant destruction, meant losing everything she had discovered about Bori. The next few hours became a dance of intellectual warfare. Hyun pulled out every single research document, every observation, every minute detail she had collected. Her documentation was meticulous, scientific, precise, leaving no room for emotional interpretation. Bori seemed to sense the tension. Its scales shifted colors rapidly, a complex pattern of blues, silvers, and deep emerald greens. To the untrained eye, it might look like random color changes. But Hyun understood. This was communication. This was warning. "The creature demonstrates unprecedented cognitive abilities," Hyun argued, her voice steady despite the internal storm. "Military extraction would compromise years of potential scientific research." Colonel Zhang remained unmoved. National security. Trump's scientific curiosity, he responded, his fingers already signing transfer documents. But Hyun wasn't alone. Dr. Kim, who had initially been skeptical, now stood beside her. Other senior researchers began presenting their findings: video recordings, behavioral analysis, communication patterns that defied current scientific understanding. The military team hadn't expected resistance. They expected a straightforward extraction. Instead, they found a team of passionate scientists ready to challenge every single protocol. Hours turned into a battle of intellects. Documentation was reviewed. Videos were analyzed. Bori watched, its intelligent eyes tracking every single movement in the room. Something extraordinary happened during those tense hours. Bori began demonstrating complex problem-solving skills. When complex scientific equipment was presented, it didn't just observe, it began interacting, solving complex mathematical sequences, demonstrating understanding that went beyond simple mimicry. The military team's confidence began to crack. This isn't just an alien specimen, Hyun argued. This is a sentient being capable of complex reasoning. Extraction would be equivalent to scientific murder. Her words hung in the air, challenging everything the military team believed. Colonel Zhang's facade began to break. The more they investigated, the more they realized this wasn't a simple extraction. This was a potential breakthrough in understanding extraterrestrial intelligence. By sunset, something unprecedented happened. The military team's mission transformed. What began as a potential seizure became a collaborative research opportunity. Bori had done more than survive. It had challenged an entire system of understanding. As the military vehicles departed, leaving behind a new collaborative research agreement, Hyun looked at Bori. No words were exchanged, just a moment of pure, mutual understanding. They had won. More than a battle. They had opened a door to a new way of thinking about intelligence, communication, and the vast possibilities that existed beyond human comprehension. The research station would never be the same. And neither would humanity's understanding of life beyond Earth. Would you like me to continue with this approach for the final part? Here's an expanded version of Part 5, a new beginning in a simple, engaging, and human-centric narrative. The journey home wasn't just a travel between locations. It was a journey between worlds. Hyun never imagined she would be preparing to bring an alien life form back to Earth. The paperwork had been mind-boggling. Months of negotiations, endless meetings, scientific reviews, and diplomatic discussions. What had started as a simple planetary research mission had transformed into something extraordinary. Bori sat quietly in a specially designed containment unit, but it wasn't a prison. It was more like a sophisticated living space that reflected years of careful research and understanding. The unit was a marvel of scientific engineering, adaptable, responsive, designed to make Bori feel as comfortable as possible. The research team had become a family. Dr. Kim, who once was the most skeptical, now spoke about Bori with a father's pride. Other researchers had become advocates, protectors of this incredible discovery. We're not just transporting a specimen, Hyun would explain during press conferences. We're bringing home a partner in scientific discovery. The journey itself was a testament to human and alien connection. During long space travel hours, Hyun and Bori developed communication methods that went beyond traditional understanding. Color patterns, subtle movements, complex sound frequencies. They had created a language uniquely their own. Earth's scientific community watched with a mixture of excitement and apprehension. News channels ran endless speculation. Scientific. Journals prepared special editions. Governments discussed potential implications. But for Hyun, it was deeply personal. The first public presentation was nerve-wracking. Global scientific leaders, military representatives, and media from around the world gathered. Everyone expected a clinical, detached scientific demonstration. They got something entirely different. Bori didn't just demonstrate intelligence, it demonstrated connection. During the presentation, it began solving complex mathematical problems, responding to multilingual communication attempts, and showing emotional intelligence that left the audience stunned. What happened next was unexpected. Instead of fear or scientific detachment, The global response was one of wonder. Children wrote letters. Scientists requested collaboration. Schools began developing new curriculum, exploring extraterrestrial communication possibilities. Hyun realized they had done more than bring an alien life form to Earth. They had opened a window to understanding that went beyond species, beyond planetary boundaries. The research facility became more than a scientific institution. It became a bridge between worlds. Bori's presence triggered unprecedented global conversations. How do we define intelligence? What does communication truly mean? What possibilities exist beyond our current understanding? Months turned into years. Bori continued to grow, to learn, to adapt. The initial containment unit evolved into a sophisticated research environment that felt more like a home than a laboratory. International collaborations emerged. Scientists from different countries worked together, united by the discovery of Bori. Language barriers seemed to dissolve. Cultural differences became less significant. During one particularly memorable moment, Bori created a complex mathematical model that solved a decades-old scientific problem. The discovery wasn't just scientific, it was a testament to the power of connection, of looking beyond established boundaries. Hyun often reflected on that first moment on the lunar surface, a chance encounter that had transformed into a journey beyond imagination. We didn't just discover a new life form, she would tell students during lectures. We discovered a new way of understanding existence itself. The story of Hyun and Bori became more than a scientific breakthrough. It became a symbol of human potential, of curiosity, of the incredible possibilities that emerge when we approach the unknown with open minds and compassionate hearts. As another year passed, the world continued to watch, to learn, to wonder, and at the center of it all, a scientist and an alien, united by an unexpected connection that would change everything.